Hello, my name is Nikki Bond. I am one of the adjunct faculty members here at Purdue University Global. I worked in child welfare for 7.5 years, and my title varied while I was in that within that field. I worked in child welfare as a foster care case manager. I also worked as an intact family worker as well. I also served as a trainer, and I trained child protection investigators, foster care caseworkers, and intact family service workers, also juvenile court personnel. I would say within my role, I'll take my role as a child welfare specialist, foster care case manager. Some of my main responsibilities in a typical week actually consisted pretty much of doing a lot of home visits with the biological family. Also, I did a lot of supervising visits for the children and the families between their moms and the dads and the children, sometimes even sibling visits as well when the siblings were out of the home with each other. Also, a lot of collaborating, working with a lot of child welfare community stakeholders and service providers. Going to court also was another role of what a typical week looked like. A lot of documentation, a lot of case notes for sure. The skills that I would say that are necessary to be successful in this position, you have to be extremely organized because you have multiple cases that you are juggling at the same time. And you have to keep up with everything that is happening with each one of the cases. And so, extremely organized, also being very thorough, also being very detailed is really important for this role. I would also say some other necessary skills would be is that you have to be able to be a people person. You have to be relatable. You have to be a person that your clients will be able to trust. You have to know how to build relationships with people. And I think probably one of the most important skills to have is to be empathetic. You have to have the skill of empathy. You have to learn how to be able to put yourself in, in your family's shoes, in your parents, in your kids' shoes, and it helps you to be able to, deliver services in more of a client based format, and it's more client focused, and so it allows you to be able to make sure that you see your client, you hear your client, and that you are able to serve your client. What I find most enjoyable, or what I found most enjoyable about the work, was being able to provide stability for children, whether that was return home or whether that was adoption. I would say that that was one of the things that I found the most enjoyable, was being able to protect this vulnerable population of children and potentially giving them another opportunity to be able to have a safe life that is less traumatic maybe than the one that they had. Also, the most enjoying is being able to return children home, being able to see our parents correct the conditions that brought their children into care, seeing them turn their lives around. That's probably the most enjoyable part about the work, is those individuals who are positively impacted by the child welfare system. What I would say that I found, what I found the least that I did not like about, my work, was my inability to control a lot of things. I would say, especially when it came to juvenile court. As a foster care caseworker, we only were able to make recommendations to the court. Ultimately, the court would make the final decision. The judges, and then the guardian ad litems, the state's attorneys, they ultimately, held all of the cards in their hand. And so I didn't like that, because I truly was an advocate for my parents, and I really went tooth and nail for them. And so, I would argue their case in court, but ultimately it would be up to the judge to make that decision. So I didn't like that very much. Some of the biggest challenges that I faced in that position, in serving within that population, I think that there were two. I would say there were two big challenges. One big challenge was the parents and sometimes their inability to correct the conditions that brought their children into care. That was a big challenge because it delayed the case a lot. And, it caused the children to be in foster care, longer than what they needed to. It also prolonged permanency, like such as adoption or maybe even guardianship. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges was really getting the parents to actually engage into services, but then also being consistent with engaging in services, coming to visits. Also, I would say another big challenge that I faced working within that population was just the system as in a whole. The child welfare system in general was a big challenge because there are just so many systemic issues. There are so many different decisions and moving parts within the system that sometimes one decision is actually impacting a whole population of individuals. And so I would say that those two are the biggest challenges only because you don't have a lot of control, you don't have a lot of influence. There's only so much that you're able to do. What I wish I had known when I first started working in the field of human services and working directly within my population of children and families, one thing that I wish I would have known is that all children did not return home. I don't know if I kind of missed that part during my training or what, but I remember just kind of wanting to go into the field and I just wanted to save every family. I wanted all the children to return home. And I was not prepared for parents to not engage in services. I wasn't prepared for parents to not fight to get their children back. I wasn't prepared for parents to have their parental rights terminated. So that I would say that was probably something that I wish I would have known, like kind of what that process looked like prior to me going into getting my first case that ended up being a case where I had to terminate the parents' parental rights. That was very traumatizing for me. And so, yeah, I think that would probably be my number one. And what advice would I give to you as a human service student, someone that's on the verge of graduating? My advice to you would be to go into the field of human services prepared to serve. Go in prepared to serve. Sometimes I know that we go in kind of with our own agenda. And as me, right, I wanted to save the world. But I think that what is important is that you want to go in and you want to make sure that you're building those relationships with your families. I think it's important that you make sure that you kind of deal with maybe some of your biases potentially that you may have um, with certain areas because working in human services, you come in contact with a number of different populations. So I think that, identifying our bias, recognizing them, I always say you can't, confront what you don't face. And our biases and our prejudices towards our families can really impact our ability to connect and our ability to be able to forge those relationships that are necessary in order to be able to do our job. And so I would definitely say that one big thing is checking, our biases, whether it be towards, domestic violence or whether it's towards, child sex offenders, whatever area that you may be going into. I think taking some time to self-reflect and to make sure that your lenses are clear and that you are able to serve your clients from a neutral perspective regardless of what has happened. I think that would be my number one advice to you. So I hope that I was able to give you some insight a little bit into my experiences of working in child welfare, and I know that you are going to be successful and you are going to be such an asset to the field. So I'm excited that you made this decision, and I look forward to maybe hopefully hearing about some of your success soon. Thank you.